Improve your diet, improve your protein. ButcherBox.com/herd. 2 free pounds of ground beef in every box. Life of your membership. ButcherBox.com/HERD. So we, it was February 1st that I went on the air. The Rams made the big Matt Stafford deal, and they got rid of Jared Goff. And it was surprising. But what had happened during the season, remember, Sean McVay gets hired. He's this brilliant young coach. He comes in and saves Jared Goff's career. And they won like 70% of their games together. They got to a Super Bowl. And they were, he was kind of the next young star. He outdueled Patrick Mahomes in a game. And then all of a sudden last year, publicly, McVay went after him. And so when they made the deal with Detroit for Matt Stafford, that day I went on the air, February 1st, and I said, let's go find the day it blew up. Because this had been a really good relationship. And I had theorized, I said, when they lost to San Francisco, I said, Kyle Shanahan does not consider Cliff Kingsbury a threat to his reputation or Pete Carroll because of his age. But Kyle Shanahan surpassing him in his own division as the best young coach, that's going to hit his ego. And Shanahan is 4-0 against McVay in the last 2 years. And when Shanahan beat McVay with Nick Mullins, I said, that was the moment. It has now officially been confirmed. That was the moment. ESPN story. After that loss, McVay called out Goff in front of his teammates and laid into him after the game, and then laid into him. He had multiple turnovers in that game. There's one of them right there. So we said, let's find the moment the relationship died. Listen, we anybody that's been through a relationship, there's a night, there's an epiphany, there's a moment when the relationship ends. She's the woman comes home, he doesn't get it. He just doesn't get me. Or he says the same thing. She's crazy, I can't take it. There's a moment. This was the one you guessed, and it's now official. This was it. After the game, apparently McVay called him out, and Goff just was done with it. Like, he just didn't want to be called out. That's not his personality. That's not what works. And what's also interesting, and there's some ego at play here, is that McVay, Kyle Shanahan, and Matt LaFleur, the Packer coach, they were all on the same staff on the Washington football team. Well, LaFleur now is winning 13 games a year, and Shanahan is beating McVay and more recently got to the Super Bowl. So McVay's sitting there thinking, time out. My career now is being questioned. I'm the third most successful of those young three, and I'm not having Goff get in the way of it. And what's interesting about this, here's why I think it's actually a really good move, is that, and I've said this, who you do trades with matters. For years and years, Belichick made moves when the Bills in Cleveland and Detroit stunk. Because he knows if he sends players to lousy franchises, they probably won't flourish. And he's getting players at the time Cleveland, Buffalo, Detroit were awful. One still is. He's getting players who in his culture will elevate. So Belichick made a lot of moves. Wes Welker from Miami. Cleveland, Buffalo, Detroit, Miami at the time. Bad teams, bad cultures, where Bill knows if I send a player there, it won't come back to haunt me. The reason the Rams moved to Stafford is so smart is that they, I'm sure they tried to go after other teams, but Stafford is going from an absolutely poorly run franchise to a well-run franchise with a good O-line and great gifts and a capable GM and an excellent coach. So there's no dispute. Stafford's going to get a lot of MVP votes this year. I'm not into that stuff, but he will. So he's getting an elevation of culture. So Matt Stafford's going to be good. But the Rams also privately know that Goff now is going to have much less of a culture, much less of an O-line, much less of a coach. So 1 year from now, that trade's going to look even more brilliant. As Stafford comes and flourishes like the Patriots did in a really good culture, Stafford's going to have time to throw, a lot of weapons, going to be very happy. Stafford in a year, we're going to be like, wow. And Goff, and I feel bad for him, is going to the worst NFL culture by far. So Goff's going to trend down. And so a year from now, this move is going to look genius. So who you trade with matters, but we did find the actual moment that the relationship went into the tank. It said here it was cussing out Goff. Goff felt crushed. Goff didn't know who to go to. Good story. By the way, I saw this. Joy was talking about this. So the Chicago Bears are, we always blame the quarterback, and we blame the players, and we blame the coach. We never blame the GM. The Bears don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. Totally tone deaf. They went out and put Andy Dalton, quarterback 1, on their Twitter account. Now, this is ridiculous for a lot of reasons. We know they pursued Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. We know they pursued other quarterbacks. We know Andy Dalton was not their first choice. Everybody knows that. Chicago knows that. Fans know that. So to trump this on social media is, again, tone deaf. And this is an organization that kept telling us how much they loved Mitch Trubisky and then bailed on him the minute they could. Is that sometimes players need to escape places. Matt Stafford escaped the Lions. I mean, he went to them and said, it's just over. Like, I'm done. And the Lions, to their credit, were willing to send him to an NFC power, the Rams. Carson Wentz, to me, the stories came out, he escaped Philadelphia. It was just toxic. Owner, GM, coach, it was toxic. Matt Nagy needs to escape Chicago because I think he can coach. I really do. And do an Andy Dufresne in Shawshank Redemption and get in a tunnel and just leave the grounds. In fact, you've heard of Escape from Alcatraz. Matt Nagy, Escape from Chicago. That's the actual movie poster. He is, right now, he's trapped. Like, I feel bad for him. I think you have a really good coach. And this has happened before, by the way, in the NFL, where you have a good coach and he's got a bad owner. They got a bad general manager. I don't think Chicago knows what they're doing. And what they're really bad at, they're really bad at the optics. So this is a team that spent a lot of money on Mike Glennon, invited him to a draft party, and at the party moved up for Mitch Trubisky. At the draft party. Okay. I mean, this is an organization that did not refute any of the Russell Wilson trade rumors. When you're trading for Russell Wilson and you're Chicago and the rumors come out, you just deny. You just get out of that because the chances of landing him were about 5%. And so you have to be able to, they call it seeing around corners. You have to be able to see trouble before it happens, right? There's an instinct to it. The great GMs and coaches, smart people have it. Can you see around corners? You knew the chances of getting Russell Wilson were slim and none. And I applaud them for going for it. But once you didn't get him, whoever you got would be a huge settle, whether it was Jameis or Andy Dalton. So what you do in the Russell Wilson stuff is you downplay it constantly. These are rumors. Some of this stuff is just nonsense. You don't light it up because you're not going to get him. A part of the reality of running a company is everybody can see the obvious crap. Can you see around corners? Can you see, like, if we do this, that's going to happen? Once you just kind of went all in and embraced the Russell Wilson stuff, you were just begging for your fan base to be let down with the end result. Andy Dalton, quarterback 1. What are we doing as a franchise? What are you doing? All right, Joel Klatt. We are going to have our mock draft. I'm very excited for this. Mock draft with Joel Klatt. Listen, he's not going to win. Hopefully he's a good sport. That's coming up.